Welcome back to Rockstock Channel. It is Thursday, March 9th, and we are here with Eric Desaulniers, the CEO of Nouveau Monde. I just got back from Toronto and an extremely well-attended PDAC where I saw Eric and his team. We did a short tweet interview. Decided it was time, long overdue, that we talk again about graphite. In our last video with Matt Fernley, he agrees with us that graphite will be the next lithium. Question is a when, not an if. I don't know if Eric maybe has some view on that, but we are hosting just another advertisement, the 21st RK Equity and Rockstock Channel's first ever conference called Canada Rocks. It will be all Quebec and Ontario focused, mostly lithium, but we will cover with Matt Fernley a more in-depth graphite, and Eric has graciously agreed to attend that as Nouveau Monde possesses, I guess, the two best graphite mines in Quebec. It is the most advanced story in North America, I think, for natural graphite. Partnered with Pallinghurst. We've interviewed in the past Arne Fransden, who is the largest shareholder and board member of Nouveau Monde. And you had great news toward the end of last year, an agreement with Panasonic. And, so it's a bit of a time for an update. We actually haven't had you on the podcast before, Eric. We've talked about graphite, again, with Arnie and Matt Fernley. So a privilege to have you on for the first time. Again, long overdue. So why don't you just give a little bit of background of yourself and quick elevator pitch on Nouveau Monde, and then Rodney will dig in with some questions.
Super. First of all, thank you very much for having me, Howard. It was great to see you, I think, yesterday or the day before with the suit and a tie in Toronto. But now we're last 2 days of the March break here in Quebec with the family in the ski cottage. So you see in the background the St. Lawrence River. So a scenery that I prefer compared to big concrete building in Toronto. But this is great to be there this morning, talk about graphite. Obviously, both the BMO conference and the PDAC were all about critical minerals. It was very well attended, a lot of interest from investors. And please, in your channel, continue helping all the lithium company, bringing as much capacity for lithium in the market as possible, because for every tons of lithium in the market, you'll need 1.5 tons of graphite at some point to do the anode as well. And I agree with you. It is coming very soon. Graphite is picking up in terms of interest. We have a lot of discussion with different cell maker, OEMs, and governments who want to host us in their jurisdiction. So it's very, very interesting time. So here in Quebec, we're developing, as you've mentioned, the two most advanced and largest mining asset in North America with the Matawinie mine and the Watnan mining project. That's the two projects that we will build in sequence. The first is the Matawinie mine. It's already in construction. It's 2 hours north of Montreal. And the Watnan mining project, once we finish construction in 2025, 2026, we move the construction team to build this 500,000 ton per annum large deposit to be in production, hopefully around 2028. So just on time for the massive demand that is expected at that time. And all that material, most of it will be transformed into Bécancour. We have already a large land there. We're ready to start construction on the project as well. And we're in talk to also transform in Europe some capacity out of the Watnan mining project and also in the US, obviously. So that's quite exciting time. A lot of interest from different cell makers. We already announced our agreement with Panasonic. It's great. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But there's also a lot of other who need our product.
Great. Eric, if I can just cover some ground and go through some of the questions, and look at the market a little bit more deeply. So if we look at the growth in battery cells, that's no longer really disputed. It's not a debatable point. We're seeing a massive increase in battery cell production, and also in the announcements around the adoption of LFP cathode. While we think that there may be some pinch points in that supply chain, the trajectory is still very strong due to its cost benefits. Does the increased usage of LFP result in the need for more natural graphite than it would have if it had been an NMC market? There's sometimes more silicon in the NMC, so does that mean better demand for you?
Yeah, that's a fair question. So, at the end of the day, any chemistry need a lot of graphite. All the different chemistry, NMC, NCA, LFP, all use graphite in the anode with the variable content of artificial graphite versus natural with silicon. Typically, when you choose LFP, it's for cost reason. Natural graphite being a much lower cost by a margin compared to synthetic graphite. Typically, LFP producer use more natural, and typically as well, when you want a energy battery, like capacity battery, and you want to add silicon, you focus on capacity. That's where natural graphite is also dominant compared artificial graphite. So there's no direct correlation all the time. All the LFP made identical. Every LFP producer has a different recipe. However, we see a trend that LFP typically has more natural graphite because the focus is on capacity and on cost, and that's where natural graphite has a big advantage over artificial.
I mean, if you look at where things stand now with China really in very strong control, the key to being a successful operator outside of China, is a production of the high purity coated spherical graphite. How are things progressing at the demo plant, and how are you doing on that front?
Yes, you're totally right. So the main advantage we have over any new entry in the market in North America, it's two things. First of all, we own the two large mines. One is fully permitted in construction. So owning the feedstock is very key for anybody who would like to come here, make graphite anode material. Will need to own some mine at some point to be efficient. And the other key point is the purification step that we've developed. So we've designed since 2016 purification technology, optimizing the usage of hydroelectricity by doing thermal purification with the injection of chlorine. So we've built that at scale in Bécancour, and it's running since mid-2021. And, in the last 6 months or so, we have very good results. All the batches are pretty much 100% in specs, and we can be very confident in the cost structure we're building and the quality profile of the material. So we're ready, to start the next step and designing the commercial plan more formally, and also providing all the material needed for qualification with all the customers. But the purification step is very important in the whole story.
Just for the viewers, I did a site visit last year in October, and I was very impressed with Nouveau Monde's various demo plants. It's definitely of a scale and professionalism that's a lot better than many companies, even bigger, let alone the same size. Just on that front, so Eric, you've done a deal with Panasonic Energy. You work closely with them. Are their specs very unique? Does it mean that, as you scale, you're going to likely just keep supplying them more, or is the door open for a contract with a new taker?
Yeah, I wouldn't say but every customer, the specs are unique somehow. But in our system, our process, we can do the specs for pretty much all customers. It's a matter of optimizing your production line for the specific customer. So Panasonic, I would not say they have unique, but they have very precise spec. And it's very important to deliver tons of the product and demonstrate your consistency over every batch that you're doing for them. So why we really like the relationship, it's the best, in our view, the best partner that help us doing the continuous improvement, the Kaizen mentality to really understand how we can be the best supplier of active material for them. And it's, from the mouth of their management team, they can be only as good as their active material supplier. So they are really guiding us through this qualification process. Our team were in Osaka there in November to learn really how to make sure we respect all the specs, we understand what it's doing on their systems. So this is very good experience for the whole technical team to do that. And we like the fact that currently in our demo plant, where we've made a lot of the product for them, we've based our feasibility study on our knowledge of the specs, how we can achieve the cost profile we have and all that. So we can obviously provide the same service to other cell maker, but it will take a bit of time to just get to that deep relationship as well with somebody else. But the goal is to have Panasonic as the anchor customer, taking a significant portion of what we'll produce out of Bécancour for the phase 2, But we still have like 15-20% of the production as well available for doing another product that is complementary to what we do with Panasonic. And we're currently just negotiating the definitive agreement. So we've announced our MOU in October. We've met all the different stakeholders, the debt provider, Société Générale, doing the arranging of the debt. And then we are at the stage now to complete the definitive agreement in the upcoming months.
Yeah, you're pinching my questions. I was about to ask that. You are in the process of converting that to the definitive.
Yes, indeed. And, so now we have advisors, they have advisors, and we're just making sure that anything we do together is fully bankable and preserve the best upside possible for, all the equity holders that like us are in the project since a long time, took a lot of risks. So we need to make sure we capture the upside of the future, as well as providing a floor price that will sustain the debt. So there's a lot of little discussion to make sure this most important transaction that we ever made is made properly to support the long-term profitability of the business.
Yeah, look, it's clearly in their best interest to make sure that you can operate under all circumstances.
Absolutely, exactly that. And that's why we really like the relationship. For them, it's all about localization. So they need at least one very safe alternative to what they are currently procuring from China. And that safe alternative, they need to have mines that are local. They need to have the carbon neutrality is very important for them as well. Panasonic is very vocal about their new mentality called Yarushika, means let's do it really for Mother Earth. So we were in Osaka with a great explanation from their CTO, and also the quality. So it's quality, very important. It's localization. It's also the carbon neutrality ESG profile that we provide is exactly in line with their vision for their future suppliers. So that's great partnership.
That's actually a very good point, because everyone's always banging the drum about the cathode side, the lithium side, about the carbon emission. But given the weight and the amount of the anode, that's also critical in terms of the total carbon emission for the battery. So makes a lot of sense. Having done that deal, you're well funded because you had the raise and the convertible, but obviously there's more to come to move into the next stages. So how are things progressing on the debt side, on the grant side? I remember, I think it was Lion Energy got a very generous grant for its plant. So I'm sure you're hoping to follow in their footsteps.
Yeah, Lion Electric, the bus company, you're right.
Sorry,
yeah, and you're right. We have last financial statements. We had 81 million CAD in the bank. So we can be patient. We can wait for raising more equity until, we have this lithium moment that we all expect in the next few quarters on the pricing for graphite, and have a bit of momentum on equity, but we can be patient. The debt side is progressing very well. We announced last April the LOI with different governments providing the debt for us. So we're advanced with the German government, Euler Hermes, the Export Credit Agency, with EDC here in Canada providing the debt as well, and the Quebec government here, obviously IQ playing a role, all organized by Société Générale. So it's very advanced. All the consultants, technical and community related, were on site last fall, and they provided the report. So everything is in line. So when we complete the definitive agreement with the off-taker, we'll be in place to have the credit approval of the debt. So that's progressing very well. So we should expect that for mid this year at the latest. And then as well, the subsidy package, we're in talk with the various government or the Canadian government for a subsidy package. Hopefully we can be more vocal about that in the near future. But there's a great progress. So once we have this clear reduction of capital that we want to demonstrate to our equity holder, that's where we'll be in a place to do more equity to complete the project financing itself. And then we are like 28 months post project finance and FID, will be in production. So that's the construction timeline on both projects.
So the overall CapEx for Nouveau Monde is $1 billion US dollars. Is that right? Approximately?
Yes, about that 1.4 billion CAD. That's the initial CapEx. So with the current rate, so it's about $1 billion US. Yes.
Okay. As you're talking with your bankers, you didn't mention anything about Japan, given that Japan is now in your capital structure. In the past, we've seen like Allchem got, through Mizuho and Jogmec. And I think we had talked about that as a possibility. Is that potentially in the mix alongside the SocGen syndicated, financing you were talking about?
Indeed. So we have the three big governments I've mentioned for the debt side. For the equity side, we are in talk, obviously, with Mitsui, one of our large shareholder, alongside Panasonic. They are the one who need to approach the Japanese government for support and create together, if they want to, a Japan code to provide the equity or any form of other instrument. So it's really, if they want to keep all the equity for them, they can. But if they want to leverage the Japanese Jogmec, for instance, they are the one approaching and create a Japan code that is investing in project overseas. So indeed, we had talk with Jogmec. That's a process that may happen should our Japanese partner decide to go through that route.
Of the billion US or 1.4 billion Canadian, how much debt do you think you'll get as a percentage? And with interest rates rising, any kind of indication on what the rates are? Because in America, you have these loan programs office, which are very low rates. Unfortunately, we don't have that in Canada, but maybe Canada will kind of follow on that. I guess the overall debt be expected to be, and if you can comment at all on, interest rate. And then I'm trying to assess what is the kind of equity that will be needed, when you go into final investment decision and to fully fund the project.
Yes. So we've announced previously about 70% debt, 30% equity, and it's still the plan. And more precise, currently the senior debt package that I've mentioned will represent around 50%, most likely. We are waiting for the subsidy package. So we do have the program in Canada equivalent to the DOE. It's called the Strategic Innovation Fund of Canada. So they can provide, and in their program, what they do is 0% coupon, 15% tenure after 3 years of no repayment during construction. So it's quasi-equity, and it's a forgivable loan if you reach different milestones. You can have your loan forgiven for the specific years. So this should be playing a big role in the financial stack, but we are currently in talk to see how much and when we can have access to such a subsidy package to compete with what the DOE is giving to U.S. project in America. And then the remaining will be equity. So, what we internally model now, it's 50% senior debt, 25% subsidy, 25% equity. That's what should be made to compare what the U.S. projects are getting. Within the 25% of equity, we have the off-taker will play a role. And we have Palingers like you, who are always very supportive and very good partner on the equity side since a long time. So we expect them to be there as well to complete the package.
Okay. I don't personally have doubt that you can raise the equity once the pieces of the debt, and the subsidy are in place. The question, I think a number of viewers will be like, at what level of dilution will that be? What will the market cap of Nouveau Monde be when you do raise that equity? Your current market cap is about $316 million US. You are talking, it sounds like, needing about 250 million, of that. Look, post Battery Day in 2020, there was market enthusiasm for everything: lithium, nickel, graphite. Your stock price was a lot higher. It's really all been focused on lithium in the past, year and a half, because lithium prices, commodity equities follow commodity prices. Lithium has all this narrative, and there's Albemarle and Livent. There are public companies educating the market all the time about lithium. I've just observed in graphite, you don't have any real public producers. I mean, Syra is still relatively a junior company. Everything's in China. So there's a big education gap. You said you have 81 million Canadian in the bank. I mean, I guess, can you wait it out, right? Like if you're all ready to hit the fully financed bid, but the equity price, is not something that you think is too dilutive, can you wait, 3-6 months? How do we get comfortable, on that? It's a great project. Anyway, that's a consideration I have.
I won't tell you dilution is the solution. It's not true. I heard that in a funny video. So no, you're right. Dilution is something that we closely monitor. What we hope in the next 2 quarters, because there's a lot of hope in terms of equity sometimes. So it's really the graphite pricing picking up. So with the 80 million we have, we can be patient. We don't have much capex to do on the phase one. It's all built now and it's all operating, so we can be a bit more cash conscious for the next few quarters while we wait for all the announcement I was referring to. So we do not intend to do the equity portion of the project finance until like major event, like the subsidy package, the credit approval of the debt that we can announce, the definitive agreement with the off-taker, and what will be their financial commitment to the project. So there's a lot of very significant announcement to do in the next 2 quarters. At the same time, we need to have this moment. It cannot be like that. For every ton of lithium that goes in the market, you need 1.5 tons of graphite. So there should be, and when I started the company 12 years ago now, graphite for pricing was double, triple. So it is a relatively small market that is in big need. It's the biggest component of the lithium-ion battery in weight. So we should see something happening in the next few quarters. And the cell maker understands that. They see it coming. They are more and more aggressive. That's why we're running kind of a competitive process for the remaining part of our production. So there should be some equity re-rating that we hope in the next few quarters, but we can be patient to wait for that moment.
If I look at Rodney, it adds a significant volume of flake concentrate for you for NMG. Have you done a lot of work testing this material?
Yeah, we do have access to concentrate, so we've analyzed the concentrate indeed. We did not process a lot of anode material just now on the wetland. We were focused really on designing and developing a mining project that makes sense, and that's what we did with the PEA we filed recently. As the next step ahead of us is really confirming the quality of the anode material produced with the wetland project, starting to work with some large potential off-taker who are interested about significant volumes, to give them samples in their hand of coming from that project using the same process we are with in Bécancour, and then also developing the tailings facility that will support the permitting process. So before the end of 2024, we should be in a position where we filed a feasibility study on the project, and we will apply for permits before the end of 2024 to be ready sometimes in 2025, 2026 with a fully permitted project, fully off-take project as well, customers having received product, us having confirmed that all the process goes well, building the electrochemical results needed to also have all the marketing discussion on the production. So we have a lot of work on the project in the upcoming 2 years to make it at the same level of quality compared to Matawinie mine that is currently in construction. But we do have the team for that. We do have all the phase one installation to do exactly that. And that's why we were very successful so far on the project developing it. I think we have the team and the right assets to be the developer of that project.
Look, it certainly is of a big scale. And on that front, Eric, I mean, the IRA is obviously a huge thing for the US, but it also, it looks as if it changes the whole landscape for North America. How do you feel that it changes things for you as Nouveau Monde?
Yeah, so we understood something last year when we were negotiating with our off-taker partners is they really need an asset in North America. They need the asset to be in North America. It's not like if they can trade the Chinese logistics and geopolitical risk with an asset that is not local, like meaning Africa. So you don't want to trade the Chinese risk with the African risk because you don't fix anything with still long supply chain, unstable jurisdictions sometimes. So they needed assets in North America. So that's really why we were a bit more aggressive at securing the landscape here by developing the 2 projects. IRA play definitely a role into that. It's just the cherry on the sundae. But even though there was no IRA will just help us having probably a better pricing for our product. However, because they already decided to build plants here in North America. They need supplier here in North America.
Just on that front, so I've seen some announcements recently about various companies now looking to pivot their battery cell production into the US away from Europe because of the IRA. So
yeah,
suddenly the amount of battery cell capacity that's going to be in the US looks high because it's very generous. It's $35, I think, per kilowatt hour, and then $10 for the pack. So that's a lot of incentive. Have you seen an elevated increase in approaches from potential, battery cell companies? Has that picked up?
Absolutely, because for one very easy reason to understand, if they procure material from an entity of concern, namely China, they won't be eligible for IRA. So that's a big issue. And currently 100% of the natural graphite going in battery comes from China. So it's the most controlled material that goes in the battery by Chinese economy. So they need alternatives. And that's why we secured as well all the ground here in North America. So we can be one of the very few alternatives to China that is eligible for IRA. And you're right, we had a lot of discussion in the past with European cell maker, and now few of them anyway are moving their project into North America, and they are in the process of signing their final location, and they should announce very soon. So very soon you'll see some more announcement of large European players coming in North America, and hopefully they'll choose a location that is in our best interest. More to follow on that.
Okay, great. One last question. I mean, and to some extent, that commentary answers it, with the subsidies and the issues. But I guess the question is, can China, ramp production, aggressively and spoil the party, or will, ESG considerations and transport, geopolitics, and all the rest of it mean guys want local supply no matter what, or can China, sort of try and muscle in on this game?
Yeah, no, in the early 90s, that's what they did on graphite. But this time, even in China, cost is going up. In China, labor cost is I think I read an article now, it's now around $8-9 an hour, the minimum wage. So it's like, I remember not so long ago, it was the same in Canada. Actually, when I was young, it was like $6 US an hour. So, I mean, it's getting more expensive to do stuff in China. The people are getting paid properly. They don't want to work in a bad environment with debt and stuff like that. So HF purification, cheap way to process, to purify graphite in the past. We've seen new videos made by French media. You see like big areas where there's no more crops growing because of the HF pollution. So that stuff is not acceptable even in China. So we don't expect cost in China to go down. Energy cost is very expensive compared here in North America, in Quebec anyway, where we are. So we don't expect them to be able to do that. And anyway, even if they reduce, obviously they will bring capacity in the market. We cannot say like that China won't build more capacity. It's just the capacity they will build won't be enough for what we need here in the Western world. And especially when you add 25% tariffs coming in the US for strategic materials coming from China, there's a 25% tariffs on graphite now. And there's as well the eligibility on IRA that is you don't get if you buy from China. So there are clear financial benefits to procure your material close by.
Yeah,
exactly.
And this is all, of course, before any sort of carbon tax.
Yes, indeed. So currently the average in China is 14 tons of CO2 equivalent per ton of product. So when you buy product in China, you need to buy 14 tons of compensation for the emission that you just bought. So when you buy a carbon neutral there at $50 a ton for CO2 on the carbon exchange in the US, because there's no penalty yet. In Europe, it's over $100 for CO2 ton to compensate. So you'll see when there are penalties and companies are obliged to compensate, you'll see an increase in pricing for the carbon tax. So we're very well positioned here. Already have designed all the operations using the hydro. So for us, it's smart to do it for economical reason, and we're really well positioned for the future.
Fantastic. Thanks, Eric.
Awesome. I don't have any more. Eric, thank you very much for your time and look forward to seeing you again with Matt Fernley taking a stab with some additional questions at later this month, March 21st. Canada rocks. It's exciting times and getting this thing fully funded and into construction, hopefully in the not too distant future.
Great. Thank you very much, Howard and Rodney. Always a pleasure to talk with you guys.
Okay. And last thing, Nouveau Monde is the only New York Stock Exchange listed graphite play or fully US listed. It's also listed in Canada, following in the footsteps of a number of the lithium companies like Lithium Americas and Piedmont and a few others who have done it in lithium. Nouveau Monde listed, I guess, in 2021. That's relevant for American investors who may not have familiarity with investing on Canadian or Australian exchanges, or have some discomfort buying an OTC ticker. You are fully SEC filing. NMG is the ticker, and I'll leave it at that.